There's been so much advancement in ultraviolet radiation in a very short period of time. And we wanted to have you back on the show to tell us a little bit about that and what you're seeing in the marketplace. To what do you attribute this rapid development, and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
So there are a few reasons why we've seen a pretty dramatic shift overall in the landscape of UV technology for healthcare. The first biggest reason, of course, that everybody would expect is COVID. COVID really just brought everything down to its knees and revealed some prescient problems in infection control, even that UV technology is poised to, at least if not solve, then definitely assist in helping to solve. Infection control in general, I mean, that's kind of the point of Clean Talk, is a multifaceted problem. It's not any one thing that solves it, but rather a multitude of different solutions used in correct ways, implemented in smart and wise manners in order to make for better healthcare in general. But COVID really did expose a lot of stuff, of course, and the rise in UV was kind of almost expected at that point, in part because UV energy is really good at killing coronaviruses. Early on, we didn't even have that much data specifically around SARS-CoV-2, but as time went on, and now the data is in at this point, and it's pretty clear that in fact you need less energy in order to kill or inactivate coronaviruses, as comparatively to many types of other bacteria, whether we're talking gram positive, gram negative, and of course the more spore producing bacteria such as C. diff. The energy required to get at coronaviruses is much lower, and so there was this incentive pretty early on, just almost intuitively, that was going to be a thing that we needed to investigate. Of course, there was also the drive to try to assist in the reduction or in the issue of PPE extension, lifetime extension. And so the use of UV even to try and disinfect things like N95 face masks and various other types of PPE was really, really important early on. And so even we at Seal Shield were trying to assist in that with our technologies here. And there's to varying degrees of success. This was all something that, of course, was very time sensitive. And so while we did help in that PPE issue at the time, we're kind of beyond that at this point. And so now we're looking to different uses of UV in the healthcare environment to continue kind of building that momentum and using UV to have better healthcare outcomes.
Well, and some of our audience members maybe don't understand how the tracking on the electroclave works. Each device, so each cell phone in your system has an RFID tag on it, right? So
no, actually, no. So actually what we're doing is it uses our MDM, right? So it's tied in and it knows, it speaks
mobile device
to,
management.
Yeah, mobile device management. It will talk to the electroclave. So it knows like this device with this MAC address was sanitized at this time. So there's, full logs. We keep them for, I think, 3 years. So again, those are the key things. And, and then the other piece is the badging, right? So the user badges in. So we even know what user badged in and got a clean device. Right. So the soup to nuts.
And it incorporates with your existing badging system.
Correct.
Right? So everyone has their ID badge.
Yep.
It's got an RFID antenna, right? They tap and then they're logged in. And so you can keep track of, exactly who had a certain device. And if, God forbid, it turns out that you identify an issue that is tracked to a device, then now you have the ability to backtrack and figure out who potentially has been exposed.
Correct.
And you can take action against that. Right?
Correct. Yeah. So again, there's nothing, new that we had to bring in. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's a very common practice to have a badge with, readers already throughout the health system. So you just hook that into the electroclave, just adds on.
So it works right into your workflow.
Easily. Yep.
We've seen that evolution, and it's great to see that we are educating the next generation of infection preventionists, and I'm fascinated at what you guys are doing to do that. So please continue.
Yeah, yeah, and no disrespect to my colleagues that were the pioneers in infection prevention back in the 70s, but I think it's very true that often folks transitioned into a role, nurses transitioned into an infection prevention role as they were sort of coming near the end of their careers, and it's, definitely more of a 9 to 5 job, and certainly you're not lifting patients and that sort of thing. But over time, that has definitely changed, and the role has become so robust and so interesting and so dynamic that lots of people are interested and really becoming infection preventionists at the very start of their career. APIC has recognized this and done a lot of work over the last decade on developmental pathways for
And I'm
becoming.
sorry, APIC, the Association for Practitioners in Infection Control, right? For our audience members that aren't familiar with that acronym,
yes.
right?
Professionals in infection control. That's right. So that's our professional organization. And so a lot of work's been done through APIC to define what an infection preventionist is and sort of the competencies that someone needs to have in order to be successful in their career. And now through the Academic Pathway Committee, we are taking the next step of actually translating that into academic programs. And so that group, Chaz Rhone is my co-lead in that group, co-chair. And then we have represented infection prevention leaders and infection preventionists from across the US, lots of different settings, pediatrics, ambulatory long-term care, et cetera. Folks new in their career and folks nearing the end of their careers as well. And our group's been working for the better part of a year in developing sort of a 3-tiered approach to an academic entry into infection prevention.
Let's kind of get started with this idea. What is More Health working on? Like, what is the problem that you're solving? And let's start talking about how that can help, the healthcare system, the mission and everything. But tell us more about More Health.
It'd be my pleasure. So about 10 years ago, Hope Lewis, our founder, was working as an attorney in Beijing. And in China, the way that relationships are built are different than in the US. In the US, we tend to start with a high level of trust with our partners, and then your actions can erode that trust or maintain that trust. Whereas in China, people tend to start at a very low trust level, and then trust is built up over time. And she'd gotten to the point where she had high trust levels with her clients. And one of her clients, their child was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And they were able to put together all of the best physicians in China into a hotel room to take a multidisciplinary approach to diagnosing her, to try to figure out if there were ways that they could treat her. And the doctors all came up with the same response, which was, you need to start some sort of hospice care for her. There's nothing that can be done. But fortunately, Hope had some contacts at UCSF Medical Center in San Francisco. And they said, you know what, you should come here, see if there's anything that we can do here. There's been new advancements in care. So Hope flew to San Francisco with the child's medical records. And sure enough, there were new treatments that they were able to use to treat the child. And she's now a healthy 12-year-old. She's doing great. But the thing is, it took over a year of treatment, and it cost the parents about $2 million. Now, this really stunned Hope, because she thought that she was making a good wage in Beijing as an attorney at a big firm, but there was no way that she could afford that kind of care for her family members in the event that they had such a critical diagnosis. So she started working with her high school classmate, Bo Hu, to develop a way to bring the expertise of US physicians to people in China and around the world. And that's where More Health came from, just to create greater access to high levels of care for everyone, for as many people as possible.
Well, there's a lot of great stuff there. Is there something you can summarize for our audience that now that we have this new norm, what are the things that leaders should be focusing on to help them evolve, to adjust to this new norm and get ahead of the curve moving forward?
Sure. I don't think, listen, you got to have a communication strategy. And there's a lot of sub things underneath there around, recognition, around direction, being informed, knowledge. We basically have, 4 pillars that we work off of in our communication strategy, right? And so it should motivate, it should recognize, it should inform, and then it should direct. And direct is all about the prioritization and expectations of the role, et cetera. All that are underpinnings to, having people feel valued. And, you could do that in a virtual world. It's not, what doesn't work anymore, and I don't care what generation we're talking about, what doesn't work anymore is to stand over somebody's shoulders, not trust them, and micromanage them. That is a formula for absolute failure today. You have to trust that people want to do the best work of their life. You have to trust that, people will lean in and figure it out if you allow them to. Now, they're going to fail sometimes, and that's okay. That's where the learnings come from. And you have to support those failures, and you have to be willing to let them fail. And the thing that I do, like about what's happening in advancing things is it's challenging leaders to get out of that comfort zone, to put their ego to the side, to get more creative, right? And to amp up the things that are important, like their presentation skills, like their communication skills, to build the relationships that you need to run a successful organization.
What are the challenges or maybe the benefits of operating in a healthcare system versus an individual hospital? What can you share with us about that?
Well, that's a really good question. And there's a debate nationally about how big is too big. What are the benefits of a health system? And I think, the COVID pandemic, I think, has been one of the most recent events that have pointed out the benefits of being a health system. We certainly felt that here in Connecticut. Being in Connecticut with its proximity to Manhattan, we felt the effects of COVID very early in March of 2020. And that we saw the cases creeping up from New York, when everyone knows that the real epicenter at the beginning, right after the West Coast outbreak, was the East Coast outbreak in Manhattan. And we felt that in Greenwich Hospital. And we were able to load distribute early on and bring resources down to Greenwich Hospital and bring patients up from Greenwich Hospital and really prevent a catastrophic collapse of that institution. Because we were a health system, because we could load balance and float staff and technology and resources down to them and balance patients. And there are other hospitals within our state that are not part of a health system. And we actually ended up stepping in and helping them in a very similar way. But because we were a health system, we were very rapidly able to step in and help them and pivot and allow them to continue to deliver care. But that goes on not just during the pandemic. That happens all the time. And right now we're doing this work that we're really excited about that we call Care Signature, which is really the idea that if you go into any of our institutions, any of the places where we deliver care under our umbrella, that you should be expecting the same high quality care and consistent care no matter where you go.
Chaz, what more can you tell our audience about yourself, your background, and why you're on Clean Talk today?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I am an Assistant Vice President of Infection Prevention for HCA Healthcare, and I've been here for about 3 years. Just so you know, my educational background, I am not a nurse by trade. I actually have a master's in public health with a concentration in epidemiology from the University of Florida. So go Gators.
Go Gators.
And I've been in infection prevention for about 15 years now. And so every time I say that out loud, I take a moment to pause and think, wow, that's gone by fast. So that's just a little bit about my background.
Well, we've been doing this a little over 15 years as well, trying to fight the good fight along with you. What more can you tell our audience about HCA North Florida and your mission there?
Sure. So our division is composed of 15 healthcare facilities throughout the panhandle of the state, Gainesville, Ocala, and also Orlando. And we're in the business of healing patients and taking care of them and treating them like family. So certainly infection prevention is a big part of that. We want to keep patients safe while they're moving through our healthcare system. So that's what my passion is, and that's what my team does.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your role? I know you have a leadership role in infection prevention. Maybe you can give our audience some specifics on what your day-to-day is and your focus.
Sure. So my role is more of a consultant or a coach to our on-site IP directors and teams. So anything that they need, I tell them to reach out to me. So if it's tough conversations that need to be had with their internal leadership, helping them implement certain projects, just anything, any barriers that they need advice on removing, any coaching in terms of leadership development or career development, anything that I can provide for them. That's at my fingertips. I like to get it to them. If they ask me questions I don't know the answer, I can go out and find it. As they're, boots on the ground and busy in the trenches doing the work, I can kind of run out and grab things here and there. And that was especially important during the pandemic because, as you know, information coming at us like crazy. So just to be that person here to answer any questions that they have. Also, a major part of my role is to kind of align all of our facilities around a common goal of reducing HAIs and the processes that we use to do that. And I also serve as a liaison between our corporate IP team and, getting that information and implementing our processes within our facilities.